ideas about management and what good management is and what managers should do are constantly changing. One of the most interesting changes over the last probably about 15 to 20 years has been the idea that we need to get away from thinking that there's one mold or one way to be a manager. So we don't all need to imitate Jack Welch, for example, and try and be a mini Jack Welch as we're managing our own companies. What we need to do is develop our own personal management style. And the way we do this is to first of all start to understand what management is, and then look at different ways that we can actually manage, and then figure out which ways speak to us as an individual manager. So which ways of managing and which ideas of management really talk to us as the people that we are. So what we're going to do in this session is take a look at concepts of management, and then as we go through these concepts, you'll be guided in terms of building your own idea about yourself as a manager. Hence the title for this session, Management 101. We'll start the session by contrasting the two terms leadership and management, because these two terms are often confused. Then we'll take a look in more depth about this concept of developing your own personal unique management style and how you go about doing that. We'll take a look at different management styles that you have to select from as you're developing your own personal management style. And then we'll take a look at a new buzzword in management circles, and that is the idea of the adaptable manager. So adaptability is now considered a key concept in management, so we'll take a look at that. We'll wrap the session up by having you put together an action plan for yourself as a manager so that you can develop your own personal management style. What do the terms leadership versus management mean? A lot of different people who are experts in the field of management and leadership have kind of chimed in with their different ideas of what these two terms mean and how they can be contrasted. So let's take a look at some of these definitions. The first one is management is getting work done through others. Leadership is taking people where they haven't been but need to go. Here's another one. Leadership is doing the right things. Management is doing things right. And here's another one. Leadership is considered more inspirational and visionary, while management is more task-oriented. And finally, as I see it, people are required to follow managers. They choose to follow leaders. Here are some key points that these definitions really highlight. Management is about the day-to-day running of an organization, the routines, the processes, the quality control, making sure things get done the way they should be done in an organization. On the other hand, these quotations or these definitions of leadership versus management, they really highlight that leadership is a much less tangible concept. It's more visionary. It's all about inspiring people and getting people to push themselves above and beyond. So there's a bit of a contrast here. Management is very routine, day-to-day process. Leadership, on the other hand, is this intangible quality that inspires people and really fires people up. There's another interesting leadership versus management contrast, and this is the idea that leadership is necessary in order to push an organization through change and to get movement going in the organization. And on the other hand, management is necessary in order to bring order and stability to an organization. So this is another interesting contrast. Leadership is about change and management is about consistency, stability, and order. Let's take a look at some of the tasks that might fall under leadership with this definition of leadership as being the driver of change and movement in an organization. So here are some of the tasks that fall under leadership. Establishing direction, creating a vision, clarifying the big picture, setting strategies, aligning people, communicating goals, seeking commitment, building teams and coalitions, motivating, inspiring, and energizing people, empowering people, and satisfying unmet needs. So these are tasks that are completed to produce change. And there's a corresponding list of tasks that go with management. So to produce order and stability in an organization, here are some of the things that a manager needs to do. Planning and budgeting, establishing agendas, setting timetables, allocating resources, organizing and staffing, providing structure, making job placements, establishing rules and procedures, controlling and problem solving, developing incentives, generating creative solutions to problems, and taking corrective action to those problems. In theory, we have a really clear line between leadership and management. So here, there's inspiration and motivation going on, and in the management side, there is order and stability being put into place. Unfortunately, in the real world, that clear line, it doesn't exist. Most people in any type of management or leadership role will actually have some tasks that fall under the leadership definition and some tasks that fall under the management definition. So whenever we're in a position of responsibility in an organization, we actually have both leadership and management tasks that we have to complete. So one individual is not just a leader or not just a manager. One individual in a position of responsibility in an organization has to shift back and forth between being a leader and being a manager. And depending on the position you hold, you'll have a greater percentage on the leadership side or a greater percentage on the management side. So I'm going to put you to work to apply this to your own current position where you have some responsibility in your organization. What I'd like you to do is think about things that you do on a daily basis. So what are things that are part of your responsibilities with the organization? And would you define these as leadership tasks or would you define them as management tasks? And you'll see space on your handout under Activity 1 for you to make a list of your leadership tasks versus a list of your management tasks. As you're doing this, you'll really start to understand this leadership versus management division in terms of tasks, but you'll also understand how in practice one person has to flip back and forth between a leadership role and a management role. So have a go at deciding or determining your leadership tasks versus your management tasks. Throughout the rest of this session, I will actually be using the word management to talk about both leadership and management because I don't want to have to keep distinguishing between the two. So from here on in, even though they do have different definitions, I'm going to use the single term management to talk about things we do when we're in a position of responsibility in an organization. As I mentioned in the introduction to this session, there used to be this idea that in order to be a good manager, you simply had to follow or copy someone who had already established himself or herself as a good manager. So you could look to a manager in your organization, for example, and model yourself after him or her. Or you could look to a famous manager, like the Jack Welches of the world, and model yourself after that person. The thinking on this has really changed, however. Researchers and academics in the field of management have come to realize that we don't want to create copies of famous managers or successful managers. And the reason these managers have been successful in the first place is that they have developed their own unique management style. So the thinking now is that rather than copying or imitating someone who's been successful, what we need to do as managers is look inward and discover who we are uniquely as a manager and really develop that person who we are as a manager. So let's take a look at how we do this. In order to really understand who we are as managers and what makes us unique as a manager, we have to kind of be very reflective about our past experience and also be very reflective about who we are as a person. So we have to go back into our past professional experience and take a look at how did we react in different situations, what did we learn from very difficult situations we were in, what did we do in order to be successful. We also have to do something that can be quite difficult, and we have to take a look at what we call our dark side. So this is taking a look at and acknowledging our weaknesses, maybe things that frustrate us, things that make us angry, situations where we failed very badly and what we did to bring about that failure. So we also have to dig pretty deeply, not just into our successes, but also into our failures. We also have to be very honest with ourselves about what drives us. So what are the values that we adhere to? What are the things that we believe about life, about work, about people, and our role in the world? These are all very big picture types of things that we have to take a look at. We also have to be very honest. Are we in a management position because we want power, because we want control? Are we in a management position because we believe we're the best person for the job, or because we really believe in the organization we work for? So we have to be pretty honest about why we're in this management position in the first place. I'm going to give you another job to put you through the process of starting to discover who you are as a manager and what made you that way. And this might take a bit longer than the previous task of dividing your current position into leadership and management. So take a bit of time to think about this task and really complete it in as much detail as possible. The more time you spend on it, the better understanding you'll have of yourself as a manager. So here's what you need to do. First, describe a life experience, positive or negative, that you feel has impacted you as a manager. So think back and what really sticks in your mind as having had an impact on you. Second, describe a difficult life experience that provided you with the opportunity for personal growth that now impacts you as a manager. Third, describe one element of your dark side. So, do you get angry easily? Do you like to control? Do you get frustrated easily? And how might this element negatively impact your performance as a manager? Fourth, describe one of your core values and how you might demonstrate that core value as a manager. And be specific here. Fifth, and also be specific on this one, describe one of your external drivers or motivators. And finally, sixth, describe one of your internal drivers or motivators. Once you have worked yourself through these questions and put down points and a lot of details about each one, take a look at everything that you've produced and see if you can pull out themes. You'll start to see some commonalities emerge when you look at everything that you wrote down. So you might, for example, see common situations where you do get frustrated, or common situations where you feel very satisfied or you've been very successful. So take a look at everything you've generated, pull out the common themes, and then this will start to give you an idea about who you are as a manager and what your unique particular management style is. In the previous activity, I had you generate a lot of data about who you are as a manager. And then I had you look at that data and pull out common themes that further describe you. What we're going to do now is take a look at a framework that allows you to further analyze that data about yourself that you generated. And this framework offers descriptions of different management styles. And you can take a look at the data you've generated and see which styles that data actually fits into. There are lots of different frameworks that are out there that allow us to describe different management styles. The framework we're going to use has 4 different management styles in it. And the first one is autocratic. So there's an autocratic management style. The second one is bureaucratic. The third one is democratic. And the final one is laissez-faire. And if you look at these styles side by side, you'll notice that starting with autocratic, there's a lot of manager control going on. And then all the way at the other end, at laissez-faire, there's very little manager control going on, and the control shifts over to employees. So with this framework, we're able to see this shift from manager control over to employee control through these 4 different management styles. So let's take a look at each one of these in a little bit more detail. So we'll start with the autocratic management style. This is a management style that concentrates all of the power and all of the decision-making with one person, the manager. So employees don't take part in any decision-making process. Employee motivation in this type of management style actually comes from a very structured and very clear system of rewards and, on the opposite end, punishments. So this is sort of the mini dictatorship type management style. All of the power sits with you as the manager. With each of these management styles, we'll look at situations in which this management style is actually appropriate to use and situations in which you might want to not use this management style. So we'll do this starting with the autocratic management style. When is it appropriate to use this style, and when should you not use this style? The autocratic management style is useful or appropriate with a new and untrained employee who is uncertain about what to do and needs very clear and very direct instructions. It's also useful with an employee who doesn't respond to other management styles that you might have already tried. It's useful in an organization that is under a lot of pressure to deliver services, so a very time-oriented, very high-pressure type organization. This is a good place to use the autocratic management style. It's also useful when time is of the essence for a particular decision. So it's a very, very urgent decision. You've got a crisis, you have to make a decision and move on. It's also useful when authority is directly challenged by an employee. It's useful in an area or department of an organization that needs significant restructuring. And finally, it's very useful in a crisis situation. I already mentioned this when time is of the essence in a decision, and obviously time is of the essence in crisis decisions. An autocratic management style is not appropriate when an employee exhibits a high level of anxiety, either for work reasons or personal reasons, and there's fear and resentfulness there. So don't use an autocratic style in this situation. It's also not appropriate when employees do actually expect to have their voices heard in matters which affect them. It's not appropriate when employees have become apathetic about the decisions the manager is making. And finally, it's not appropriate if you've got a situation where you have high turnover, high absenteeism, or low morale. If we are using a bureaucratic management style, we follow the rules. So this is management by the book. Here are the rules, here's what the rules say we should do in this situation, therefore this is what we're going to do. People who naturally fall into a bureaucratic management style are just really comfortable with knowing exactly what they should be doing. So this person likes routine and likes order. In a bureaucratic management style, if there's a unique situation that comes up that maybe isn't written down in the rules that this manager is trying to follow, the bureaucratic manager simply goes one step above in the hierarchy to get the rules from that person. So a bureaucratic management style is all about following policy, procedures, and rules. A bureaucratic management style is appropriate when employees are performing repetitive tasks that have a very clear right or wrong way of doing things. So it's a very routine set of tasks that are being done. It's also appropriate when there's a need for employees to understand certain standards or procedures. It's also useful when employees are responsible for dangerous, delicate, and/or expensive equipment. So a very clear set of rules has been put into place in order for there to be no safety issues or health issues. It's also appropriate when some type of training is occurring and learning the policies and procedures for a particular thing that they have to do in the company is mandatory for employees. A bureaucratic management style is also appropriate when an organization is being audited or evaluated according to a set of standards or policies. And finally, it's appropriate when employees are responsible for maintaining accounts and handling the organization's finances. So they have a set of rules and they have to follow them. A bureaucratic management style is inappropriate when inefficient, outdated, or ineffective work habits of employees need to be changed. So you need to put some change into place. And obviously to put change into place, you have to break some rules. It's also inappropriate when employees have lost interest in their jobs and they've just lost the joy of doing what they do. And it's also inappropriate when employees are doing only what is required or expected and nothing more. You need to push them beyond that, and a bureaucratic management style won't get you there. It's also inappropriate when employees require advice or assistance and just don't seem to be able to do anything without your help. So a bureaucratic management style won't get you out of that situation. A bureaucratic management style is also really inappropriate in an environment or an organization that is undergoing very rapid change, because a bureaucratic management style doesn't allow for flexibility and rapid change. So it's totally inappropriate in this situation. And finally, a bureaucratic management style is not appropriate in a crisis situation that no one in the organization has dealt with before. So there are no rules or policies or procedures for this particular crisis situation, so there's nothing to follow. This management style won't work. The next management style is a democratic management style, and this one is exactly as it sounds. In this management style, employees are very much engaged in the decision-making process. So the manager will solicit and listen to and take into account employee feedback for all of the major decisions that affect those employees. So this type of management style allows the employees to be very, very engaged in what they do, and it allows the manager to kind of step back a little bit and become more of a facilitator, coach, guide, rather than the person always having the final word on decisions or issues. So the democratic management style is appropriate when you need to build trust between the staff and yourself as the manager. So this is a style that allows that trust to be built. It's also appropriate when you feel that you don't know your staff very well, because you can get to know your staff very quickly through this particular style. It's appropriate when employees are dependent to the point of being too dependent on a manager for the most basic decisions and need to learn how to take on decision-making responsibility. It's also appropriate when you as the manager are looking to develop management skills in staff. So this management style allows you to kind of make your department or your organization a training ground for management. It's also appropriate when you're dealing with a large and complex problem that you have to solve. And next, it's appropriate when you want to promote team building and participation and just really get your staff engaged in what they're doing. It's appropriate if you want to provide opportunities for your staff to grow and learn. And finally, it's very appropriate when you have a wide variety of expertise on your team that you really need to make use of for a particular project. So you're going to engage the expertise of each of your employees through a democratic management style. This management style is not appropriate if your authority as a manager is constantly being challenged by staff. So this is actually giving staff more power than they are able to handle, because they're giving you a lot of pushback as a manager. It's also not appropriate if you've got an urgent time frame for a decision, because a democratic management style actually takes a lot of time to put into play. And it's not appropriate if you as the manager are just feeling that you've lost control of your organization and of your staff. So maybe you have stepped back a little bit too much, and then you need to pull things in a little bit tighter. Finally, a democratic management style is not appropriate if your organization doesn't have systems and procedures in place that allow your staff to participate in decision making. So it's okay to have staff or employees participate in decision making, but you do have to have a framework in place for them to operate from in order to do so. Finally, we have the laissez-faire management style. In this management style, you as the manager step really far back, almost right out of the picture, and you turn almost all of the control over to your staff or your employees. So your employees function very, very independently with a laissez-faire management style. A laissez-faire management style is very appropriate when your employees or your staff are highly trained, very experienced, and very educated. It's also appropriate when your organization has hired outside experts, such as staff specialists or consultants. It's appropriate if there's a very high amount of trust between yourself as the manager and your employees. And finally, it's appropriate when the team you're working with or the team you're managing is quite small, so it's easy for you as the manager to keep track of what's going on without having any restricting policies and procedures in place. This management style is not appropriate when you don't know your staff very well, so you're not sure what they're capable of or where their weaknesses are or where their strengths are. It's not appropriate if you're working on a project that's really, really important, because you as the manager need to take responsibility for that really important project. And finally, the laissez-faire management style is not appropriate if, as a manager, you're feeling a little bit insecure and you're just feeling like you don't have enough control in the situation. So you might want to step back in a little bit and take a little bit more control. As managers, we have these 4 management styles to select from. The very first thing you want to do as a manager is, first of all, identify which management style is the most natural for you. So if you could pick any one of these 4 styles to use all the time, which style would it be? Then you want to do the opposite. You want to identify which management style would you be most uncomfortable with. So if you had a choice, you would never go near this management style. Then the third thing you want to do with this information is take a look at the tasks you have to do as a manager in your organization and figure out which of these management styles are most appropriate for which of the tasks. Because here's the other thing. You have a choice to flip between different management styles. So for certain tasks, you can take an autocratic style or an autocratic approach. For other tasks, a more democratic approach might be more appropriate. So you have to strategically choose which management style you're going to use in which situations in your organization. So think about what you do on a daily basis in your organization and which management style is the best fit for those particular tasks. So I'm going to give you some time to think about these 3 questions and jot down notes, and that will help you apply this information about management styles to what you're doing right now as a manager. One of the latest buzzwords in management circles is the term the adaptable manager. The adaptable manager pulls together one of the concepts we've already looked at, plus a couple of other ones. So we've already looked at the idea that a manager should pick and choose an appropriate management style depending upon the situation or the context. So this is part of being an adaptable manager. Another part of being an adaptable manager is really being able to read that context very quickly and very accurately. So an adaptable manager understands that his or her context or business environment is changing very, very quickly. And this type of manager knows how to scan that environment, figure out what the differences are, and then figure out the implications of those differences for his or her organization. There are a few other components to being an adaptable manager. Not only do you need to be able to look at the change going on in your context or environment, but you also need to be able to very quickly decide a course of action for your organization in response to those changes. So this flexibility and quick-footedness is also part of being an adaptable manager. And there's still another piece. Being an adaptable manager also involves being very aware of your strengths and weaknesses as a manager and looking at the environment and the demands of that environment and figuring out where you need to fill in some skill gaps for yourself or compensate for some weaknesses for yourself in order to be able to successfully lead your organization through that change. So not only does the adaptable manager need to be environmentally and contextually aware, he or she also has to be personally aware of strengths, weaknesses, abilities, and skill gaps with respect to management. So I'm going to put you to work again, this time taking a look at yourself as an adaptable manager. So you've been given 3 questions on your handout. The first question involves your ability to scan that environment, pick up changes, and then set a new course for your organization. The second question asks about yourself as a manager. How adaptable and flexible are you, and how aware are you of your strengths and weaknesses and where adaptations need to be made? And then the third question asks, how can you use your abilities as an adaptable manager to guide your organization successfully through a rapidly changing environment? So take a look at those 3 questions and answer them for yourself. That's the end of the information part of this video. So I've given you a lot of information and ideas about management and about developing a personal management style and also about becoming an adaptable manager. What I'd like you to do now is take a few minutes and put together a personal action plan for yourself so that you can implement this information and these ideas into your own management practice. So think about your strengths and your weaknesses with respect to management and with respect to being an adaptable manager, and then what actions can you take personally so that you can move yourself forward to, first of all, having a stronger idea of what your personal management style is, and second of all, developing yourself as an adaptable manager. So take a few minutes to put together your next steps personally as you move forward as a manager. Being in a management position or any position of responsibility is never an easy thing. It's particularly challenging in today's world where things are changing really, really quickly, both within our organizations and within the context in which our organizations operate. Hopefully in this session you've gained an understanding of the different management styles or management choices that you have as you take your organization through this rapidly changing world. And hopefully you have information and ideas for how to develop your own personal management style so that you can manage your organization authentically. Thanks very much.